Welcome to another theme mountain video tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to go through the design aspects of the grid. Now, if you watch part 1 and part 2, you know how to create projects associated with the grid and also how to modify the structural settings of the grid. So the first thing I'm going to do here is show you how to modify the filter menu and the different types of filter menus that we offer. So the one that you see here is the default one, and the second option that we offer is a drop-down filter menu. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch this. In order to do that, I go to the grid menu under grid settings, and I switch the menu type to drop down. Now again, when I do this, I get a lot of different color options for each menu type below here, but I'm not going to modify them in detail. I'm just going to show you what it looks like at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and we can see what this looks like. So there we go, here's our drop-down filter menu, and the categories are listed nicely in the drop-down as such. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually switch back to the horizontal one, and I'm just quickly going to show you how you can modify the links and make them look like buttons instead. So basically just make it look a little bit more stylish. So I'm going to head back to the grid menu tab here, switch back to horizontal filter menu. When I do that, I get the horizontal filter menu color options here at the bottom. And then at the way bottom here, I get use horizontal menu link background color. I'm going to go ahead and check this, and when I do that, what happens is that a little bit of extra padding gets added to each link so that if we give them a background color, they'll end up looking like a button. Now I'm only going to go ahead and modify the active link here, so I'm going to go ahead and set that to blue, and then I'm going to change the border style of the active link to pill shaped here. Now, since I changed the background color, I will also want to change the active color. I'm going to set that to white, and we can see what this looks like here. So there we go. We have modified the horizontal menu, filter menu here, so it's a little bit more stylish. And now when I switch it here, we can see that the active link looks like a button. Now the next thing I'm going to show you here is how to center it and how to make it sticky. So again, we go back to the grid menu tab here. I'm going to switch the alignment to center, and then I'm going to go ahead and select the sticky option here. Now when I do that, I get an extra option here called extra space top, and this value determines the number of pixels from the top of the viewport where the filter menu gets sticky. So it defaults to 80 pixels because most of the headers in our theme have a height of 80 pixels. Now, so if you modify the header height, remember you might want to modify this value so that the filter menu sits nicely below the theme header as it gets sticky. So I'm going to leave it to 80 here because I haven't modified the header height, and then I'm going to go ahead and save the changes here. So let's see what this looks like. Now, of course, you can make the drop-down filter menu sticky as well, just like with the default menu here. But I'm just showing this one for illustrative purposes. So now that I scroll here, we will see that the filter menu sticks nicely below the header, and this is nice for users because then they always have access to the grid filter menu. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the default here, and we're going to have a quick look at rollover. There we go. And then we're going to head over to the roller options. Now the first thing I want to do is to change the caption alignment here. So by default, as we can see if we switch back, it's vertically aligned middle and horizontally aligned center. So we're going to switch this to bottom left. And then we're also going to change the rollover background color here. So I'm going to set this to black. And I'll also want to change the project title color and also the description color here. So let's just see what this looks like. Afterwards, I'll show you how to set a gradient. So pretty straightforward. We have a black rollover, we have the project title and description in the bottom left-hand corner, so pretty neat. And now we're going to change the rollover to a gradient instead. So let's go ahead and do that. So this time I head over back to the rollover options tab here, and I'm going to select use gradient for the rollover background color. Now, so the rollover background color we just set will be the starting color, and then we get the end color here and the gradient angle. So for the start color then, I'm going to go ahead and set this to 0, and then I'm going to set the end color to black here. I'm going to set that to maybe 75%, and I'm going to go ahead and set the angle to 180. So pretty pleased with that. And then I'm also going to go ahead and change the rollover type, because now that we set a gradient, I want the title and description to appear by default, and then fade on rollover instead. So to do that, we head over to animation, we head over to the rollover animation type, and I'm going to switch this to overlay fade image scale in. Now, as you can see, there's a bunch of options here, so I suggest you go through them, play around with them, and get a feel for it. I'm just going to switch this once so that you see the process that we go through. And once I've done that, I'm also going to switch the easing type here so that the animation gets a bit smoother maybe. Let's set it to ease in out cubic as an example here. Go ahead and save that, and then we can see what this looks like. And that looks pretty neat. As we can see, we have a gradient here, a little bit more black at the bottom so that the title and description is visible. Now that we roll over, the image scales in and the overlay fades out. So pretty neat. And the last thing I'm going to show you here is the design options for images. Now, the only option that we offer here is the border style. So basically, if you want your images in the grid to have rounded corners. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. And then one last thing here under animation, I'm going to switch the filter duration and the resize duration. Now what this is, it just determines the amount of time it takes for the tiles to either reorganize when you use the filter menu or when you resize your browser. So as an example, I'm just going to go ahead and set this to 1500 milliseconds, which translates to 1.5 seconds. So let's save that. Now before I update it, I just want to show you that we initially had 700, so you can see the speed at which it reorganizes here. Now if I update that, you will see the difference. And now you will notice the difference here when the filter duration is set to 1500 milliseconds, and the same goes for the resize duration. And so that's pretty much all there is to the design options for the grid. Again, there are a ton of different options, so I suggest you go through them, play with them, and get a feel for it. And that's all there is to it.